Insomniacs, and welcome to a very special episode of the Ghoul Kids Table podcast. I am, of course, your friend in fright, Chunky Larry, and today it's kind of as a treat for you, the listeners, the Insomniacs, the ghouls. I've brought with me to the table someone very, very special. We talked this week on the show about Terrifier 2, and we have Allie herself on the show. Miss Casey Hartnett, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Thanks for
I,
having me.
I'm glad to have you, and I'm doing fantastic. But
Good.
so, Casey, I have in the last kind of couple of days tried to do a bit of a deep dive on
Mm.
all that is you, and I'm going to ask you questions, and I'm hoping that you can kind of just fill in the blanks for me over the course of the next half hour or so.
Sure.
So, you started with ballet, correct?
I
Was it
did.
okay? So
Yeah.
was that something
Hmm.
that I'm assuming when you start something like that, it's more so forced upon you rather than
hmm
something that you want to do yourself necessarily. You were three?
I was three. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I started, my parents put me in ballet classes when I was three, and I, I mean, I loved it, and
Hmm.
I thought, performing was fun. It was my first little, it was the first time I was ever on a stage, was at those little recitals. But yeah, I kept dancing. Eventually added tap, jazz, lyrical, contemporary, hip hop, like all those other classes. And I started competing when I was 10 or 11, I think. So I started doing like the studio style competitions.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that was a big part of my life. I was dancing probably every 6 days a week. I was at my dance studio.
And
Yeah.
at a certain point, you go from it being something that your parents want to do for you to being
Mhm.
something you want to do for yourself. And do you think that there was like one of those aha moments where you're like, "Oh no, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be."
I think well, because I grew up in my dance studio, part of me, I wonder if it became kind of my second home, you
Mm,
know? So I felt very comfortable there. I felt very, I used dance and movement and performing as a sort of an outlet and a release in a way. So, um, I always knew, I eventually knew that I preferred, professionally to pursue acting, but
mm.
dance was always really this really nice release for me. And it was just a time to, kind of get away from everyday life and really just, what's the word that I'm looking for? But yeah, it was just sort of really therapeutic, maybe in a way.
Cathartic even.
Cathartic, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so I've known a couple of actors who started in dancing, and
Mm,
I've noticed in their performances that they're much more concerned about the movements of their body.
okay.
And in Terrifier 2, there's a couple of moments, specifically in the scene that everybody wants to talk to you about,
Hmm.
where there's writhing that you do that feels kind of performative, like ballet
Hmm.
almost.
Okay.
um is that something that you do kind of consciously or just kind of subconsciously?
Well, I think I'm very comfortable with movement and with
Mm,
any sort of like blocking that comes with scenes like that. Like, he's like, oh, he's going to throw you on the bed and then you're going to like crawl along the floor. And then like, so all of like that movement and it's, it's a sort of choreography in a way. So I am very comfortable with those sorts of things. Obviously, I'm not, how Lauren Lavera is a martial artist, so
yeah.
I'm not a fighter in that way, but I'm very comfortable with like the movements of the scenes and the blocking and the choreography of scenes like that. So yeah, I think it does definitely prepare you for that.
And
Absolutely.
another thing that I saw was I watched a couple of the Casey's Corners. So So
Oh my God.
I think that that's really awesome because I was like when I was a kid I was one of those like
Mhm.
emo kids that wandered off and would like
Yeah.
write poetry and sing to myself and
Hmm.
stuff like that and you see even as you're like reading your stuff out that there's this inner artist that just wants to like from the
Hmm.
very beginning wants
Hmm.
to chronicle things and be creative and there's just something really fantastic about that series and I'm gonna link that on the YouTube
Thank
just
you.
because I think other people should check this out because you are a fascinating person. You've been doing this for a very long time and
Hmm.
what do you think that little Casey Hartnett, who was in love with Harriet the Spy and
Hmm.
writing, would think of Casey now?
Um, I I think she would be proud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she'd be, little me would be proud of all the, of the persistency and the hard work that it takes to really well also, but also, continuing on this path because I think from such a young age that if something's in you from that young of an age, it's in you.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to get rid of because it's a part of you. Um, so I think she would, if my younger self would be like, that's great. I love that you're still doing that and you're still that same person. Really. Yeah.
Eh, So, what for you was the break moment for you where because obviously this film Terrifier 2 is the place where a lot of people are getting to know you
Right.
and
Hmm.
but there's a whole process that leads to that point. And what was the
Hmm.
first time where you did something where you like, this is actually going to work? Is it this or is it something that came before this?
um, I think, well, I mean, I think each project is that you do is reassuring in that way. I would say, I mean, the first time was probably the first play that I got a lead role in. And that was when I was 16. And it was this play about a blind girl. It's called Hush, and it's about a blind girl who sees an angel in her yard. And so it's sort of this quirky, fantastical type of a play in a way. And I think the first time that a director looked at me and said, this is, like that you can do this. And
Mm.
this is something. And so that was also my transition from dance into acting was that moment where I was like, I think I can do this. The first time a director trusted me with a bigger role like that. Um, and then, I mean, I would say, whenever that happens, I did a play in 2019 that was super intense, and I was on stage for 3 hours in a psychiatric ward of a hospital. So my character was going through all these like depressive highs and manic highs and depressive lows the whole time, and I think just attacking that and knowing that having a director trust you, that was a really big moment for me as well, was being cast in that play then in 2019. And then with Damien trusting me with something like this, Damien Leone the director of Terrifier, trusting me with a role like Allie's, because it's such a big scene and it's such a meaty scene and there's so much happening. Um, and it had to, you had to go all in for that. So I think, yeah, but I would say that it started when I was 16, I would say, where I was like, I think I can do this.
It's kind of validating when somebody
Right.
says this is the person for this role.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh,
Right.
so let's talk about Terrifier because
Sure.
I feel like we could kind of beat around the bush because
Yeah.
but when you go out for Terrifier,
Hmm.
I'm assuming just about the movie that it exists? It's on Netflix, or is it something you didn't even know about when you went out for the role?
So when I didn't know what it was when
Mm,
I got the audition, I looked it up. I found out that friends of mine had seen it,
mm,
and I, for some reason, hadn't. But yeah, it was something that I did some research. I didn't watch the full movie until after I auditioned, just so that I didn't get too in my head um, about my performance,
mm.
so I could bring my own thing to it. But yeah, I became aware of it. Definitely.
Probably
Hmm.
did a crash course in Art the Clown before.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you a horror fan, or is this just kind of
Hmm.
something to do?
Yeah. Um, I am, I do watch horror films.
Mm,
I wouldn't say that I was, I wasn't a fan to the point where I, had seen Terrifier or things like that. But I'm opening my eyes to that more, into like all like the indie horror films that are so amazing that are out there. But I love watching horror films, so that was not new to me. So, but there were, of course, some films that I hadn't discovered yet that I'm discovering now, which were cool. Yeah.
and the process of filming Terrifier, I
Hmm.
know you guys had started in 2019, correct?
Yes. Hmm.
And so obviously there was kind of a year where you guys had to take a bit of time off.
Right.
Uh, so did you film anything in 2019, or are you just doing table reads and
We
uh,
did.
okay,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
is getting back into the character an issue for you, or is it just, kind of a
Um, I don't think it was. We really filmed all of my scenes before the kill scene, before the pandemic.
Mhm.
So all of that was there. And then really it was just like, all right, let's let's attack this kill scene now. So in December of 2020 is when we filmed that. So
Oh,
yeah, so I mean it had been quite a while. Since we had wrapped on Allie's other scenes. But yeah, I feel like it wasn't, for some reason, it wasn't that crazy to go back into it. I think we were just mentally prepared,
and,
that was just how it was.
and the idea of acting is, kind of putting yourself into the place of somebody else,
Yeah.
and dying.
Yes.
it dying in general, but
Hmm.
dying in that fashion, is that something that you had to kind of like mentally prepare yourself for when doing the role, or like explain that process to me?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was it wasn't it was intense. I mean, it's the thing is that it's when you're mentally preparing for something like that, for something that you're not even expecting to happen.
Yeah.
um like the character is obviously not expecting that to happen. um so it all happens so well. The scene is long, but when it's happening, it's like there's no time to like think and comprehend and like, and whatever. So you're just in defense mode, trying, screaming, trying to get away. So preparing for something like that, I feel like for me, it was like, okay, so I prepared, I know physically what I'm going to do and how I'm going to approach this. But I mean, emotionally, I don't know if this sounds weird, but sort of living in the moment and just like reacting in that moment of, oh my God, this guy is like scalping me right now. Or so I mean that's like shock and fear, and you kind of just dive in, and you're kind of living in those moments in a really weird way.
Or dying in
Uh,
those moments, for
You're
that
dying in
matter.
those moments. You're being killed in those moments. So it's I mean I mean, yeah, I mean the emotional prep behind a lot of that is just, you kind of have to just live through that moment and let it shock you in a way. or
Mhm.
at least for me. I mean, every actor is different, but it's yeah, I mean, it's an intuition of, you know, what that, I mean, of course you think about what that would be like, and then you go kind of go into it, but it's I don't know, acting is weird and emotions are weird, but but it's a very, you know, yeah, in the moment sort of a thing, if that makes any sense.
Now, is there any kind of hindsight when doing
Hmm.
something particularly heavy? You talked about you working a stage play where you're three
Hmm.
hours in an insane asylum, essentially.
Right.
Um, does any of that stuff carry home with you?
I have been really good at separating it.
Hmm.
I think, uh, I mean, when I was doing that play, it was sort of like as as soon as, you know, lights went out and the, you know, it was time to call, like as soon as the play ended, I essentially was just like, like shook it off and was just like, all right, back to normal now, like back to my normal life. Because I like to go in and out of it. I don't like to, like when we were filming this scene in Terrifier, we were all, I mean, David also goes in and out of it. I was going in and out of that because I can't sit there. I can't sit there for that long in all of those things. I mean, and when you're doing the play, it's like, you know, the gift of a play is that you are living the play all the way through and there's no stopping and starting.
Hmm.
But but yeah, I mean, really, I think, I think there are things, I think there are things that you do that you become aware of the character. Like for that character, in the play where this character was in the psych ward, I think that there were things that I was like recognizing in myself and was like, I think I just became more aware even of my own mental health.
Hmm.
Um, from doing that play. So, which was really interesting. And I think I honestly became maybe just more aware of my own, um, like, I don't know. But it is weird, but I don't I like to separate myself from my characters as much as possible.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
I wanna talk kind of briefly, if at all
Hmm.
possible, about some of the activist stuff that you're doing.
Sure.
Specifically,
Yeah.
Happy Period.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's something I think is really phenomenal, and
Thank you.
I really want to shed some light on that. So if you could please just
Hmm.
kind of explain to the people that
Yeah.
are listening what that is about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Happy Period is an organization that was founded in maybe 2015, 2014 by Chelsea Von Chaz, who is um, now doing a lot of educational stuff with it. But back then, when I first met her in 2015, I had created a comedy sketch show about women on their periods and different time periods. And it was just like supposed to be a little funny thing called period
Period
drama.
piece or period drama.
Yeah,
Sorry.
period drama. Yeah. And then we did a donation drive for menstrual products for the homeless because that's what Happy Period does. And then
Yeah.
once I met Chelsea through that, I kind of became her New York chapter lead. So I was, you know, started facilitating donation drives in New York for menstrual products for the homeless because it is one of the most asked of products in shelters and, you know, even in schools and prisons, and it is one of the least donated as well. So so yeah, I mean, it's that journey has been pretty remarkable, I will say. I've met some I've seen things and met some amazing people who are in the activism space. And I would say honestly that has defined a lot of my time in New York. Because I'm originally from Chicago. So when I moved to New York, this happened within 2 years of me moving there, and it has been a huge part of my life there. But yeah, it's all about menstrual equity and menstrual, you know, menstrual health awareness, reproductive health, and things like that, and also being aware of the fact that, you know, um, there are a lot of people, even in our country, even in the US, who do have to skip school, do have to skip work because they have to, they just can't afford products that month. So it is something that I didn't realize I was passionate about until I started doing it. But yeah, it's been great.
And there's this growth of poverty across the
Hmm.
board, across the country,
Right.
that is not really being looked at in a real way.
Hmm.
Everybody sees these tents sprouting up all over their city,
Right.
and it's really easy to turn a blind eye to that.
Hmm.
So for
Yep.
you guys to go out and do something for people,
Hmm.
it may seem like a small thing to someone else, but in
Right.
the grand scheme of things, that's huge. That is something that is not often thought about when you think about the homeless situation. Is that a good portion of those homeless people are women, and those
Hmm.
women still have menstrual cycles that they have to
Right.
deal with.
Mhm.
And how do you deal?
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, it's so real. And I showed up to a shelter once and we had a bunch of donations and just like a garbage bag full of donations that we were bringing in, and we would pack them into kits for separate people as well. And I had one or two, like a couple women stopped me outside of this one shelter and they were like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Menstrual products." And they were like, they're like, "Can I have some?" And I was like, "I mean, sure, like we're going to donate them." And they're like, "No, because if you donate them, they won't, we might not get any." And it was kind of eye-opening for us to be, and I remember the shelter one time mentioning like, "Oh, maybe we'll give them away, as like game night prizes." And we were like, "No, no, no, that's not what this is not how this is supposed to work."
Huh.
But something about the shelter that they said was that they were concerned that women would fight over them if they didn't have enough for all the women. And I was just kind of like, well, can't it just be on a case by case basis? And can't you let them decide how to deal with that? Because like you can't, I feel like you can't just not give people these products. So, I mean, even within the shelter system, there are issues with it.
Hmm.
And all we can do is continue to work with the shelters and, donate as much as possible, as much as we possibly get in donations. But yeah, a lot of women are really, they will take the kids,
Yeah.
they always need them.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's one of those things that I don't know, it's been very eye-opening for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's really fantastic. I celebrate anybody that goes out of their way.
Hmm.
Especially you're on the ascension in terms of your career. To still be focused on that really says a lot about who you are.
Hmm.
And I just, hats off. I would take my hat
Thank
off
you.
before the cans, but
Thank you.
before we get out of here, I just want you to kind of let people know where they can find you,
Hmm.
things that maybe you're working on. I know that some of that stuff has to be a little close to the vest,
Hmm.
but anything that you want to kind of point people in the direction of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram as at Casey Hartnett, just my name. I have a Facebook page that I'll post some updates on. I am, I have some things in the works in the writing and producing phases, so we'll see where those go. Um, and yeah, I don't know. That's
Before I let you go, can I just pitch something to you?
okay.
All right. Um, Casey's Corner.
Yes.
Can you do something with that? Maybe Harriet the Spy esque.
I like that. Okay.
About a little girl who's got a
Yeah.
huge imagination, and
Yeah.
her creations come to life. Just spitballing
Yeah,
something out there,
I
because I
love
really
that.
like. I That was one of the things when watching and looking into you. that really just kind of grabbed me. It's so
Oh,
sweet,
thank you.
and I think that that's really cool of
Hmm.
you.
Thank you.
Also, please, film fatales and
Yes. Hmm.
what is the other one? Sustainable cycles.
Yeah. So yeah, those are two other organizations that I've volunteered with, and I Film Fatales is a big one because they are all about supporting female directors in the film and TV industry, and advocating for not just female and non-binary trans directors, focusing on all of that. And then Sustainable Cycles, I actually went on a bike tour with them in 2017, and we did workshops along the way all about sustainable and reusable menstrual products. So we were just like biking through different cities, and stopping along the way and doing all those workshops for people, which was a lot of fun. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
this life has taken me in very random places, but I love it. I love it so much. Yeah.
If you guys are here just solely because of Casey, which I do not disagree and I don't blame you for, but you've enjoyed the conversation, you want to find out more about us, you can find out more about us in a couple of different ways. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghoul Kids Table. You can follow us on Instagram at GKT Podcast and on TikTok at Ghoul_Kids_Table. But that is going to do it for us. I really want to thank you again, Casey, for coming on. You're a fantastic person, and I can't wait to see what you do next. I hope that you do
Thank
some
you.
more horror. And
Thank you.
in February, especially with the film fatales, you should be getting into contact with Women in Horror Month. It's
for
solely
sure.
about women making films and starring in films. It's behind and in front of the camera stuff, focused on women. So that's something I think would be right up your alley, especially now you're a scream queen. We can't call you a final girl because you got doused in bleach and salt.
Unfortunately. It happens.
That is going to do it for us, you guys. So for Casey Hartnett and for myself, again, my name is Chunky. This has been a special episode of the Ghoul Kids Table Podcast, and there is always a seat available for you at the table. Take care, guys. Bye-bye now.
Aren't you a little old to be trick-or-treating? Wait a minute, aren't you that guy from the costume shop? You are. What are you doing here? Oh. Seriously, do you live around here or something? You're really weird, you know that? Yeah. Look, I get it, dude. The whole creepy silent mime gimmick? I mean, it's very effective, and the blood is a nice touch also. Yeah. I can't give you anything. No, I'm sorry. Really, no candy for grown-ups. Come on.